And we're back here with episode number 2 of OPE Sports with Jordan and Andrew. How are you today, Andrew?
I'm doing pretty good, Jordan. Excited about the list of topics that we're going to get into today. Take us around the sports world as well as the local sports within Minnesota.
Well, before we get into the sporting action, I did want to talk with you. My aunt and uncle were listening, and they told me that they were playing a game, actually, listening to us, with how many times you said the word shit. Apparently it's a big number. What do you have to say for yourself?
I guess couldn't have been more than 3, I guess.
I'm not sure how many it was. I only heard one, but I thought we would mention it. They did say they love it, so whatever you're doing, keep it up, Andrew.
Fair enough. As long as we got the aunt and uncle stamp of approval.
All right, well, to start, we're going to get into the NHL, and we did not get into that last week. I wanted to talk about Matt Boldy, who recently signed a 7-year, $49 million contract. A lot of people were a little skeptical on it because he's younger, hasn't had much experience in the NHL. You know, it's a kind of a big amount to give someone, and since Kaprizov's been out, we really needed a number 2. And Boldy's been the guy to step up. In the last 7 games, he has 8 goals and 12 points. He had just a hat trick the other night. That beautiful last-second buzzer beater OT goal against the Devils. I mean, he's a really fun player to watch, and it's exciting that we can still be competitive without Kaprizov. And to me, it bodes well for the future, pun intended.
Yeah, it's nice when you can lose one of your... Well, it's not nice to lose one of your top players, but it's nice when you have someone to step in and take that role just a little bit more smoothly than you would expect.
Right. Well, they were talking about... a lot of fans talk about us not keeping Kevin Fiala last year, and the way his contract went, it was going to come down to not being able to pay a guy like Matt Boldy when his contract came up, and I know a lot of people are upset because Fiala's flourishing with the Kings right now, but that's what I was uncomfortable with. It wasn't just getting rid of Matt Dumba and that makes up the sum. It was a long-term deal that we had to worry about, and with these buyouts with Suter and Prezi, it's still an issue. So to me, it's really nice that we can have a young guy who gets the contract and just plays well, living up to it. It's just a great feeling.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that. You said in the beginning, like, the young aspect of him as almost a negative. Is that a thing that's really focused on super hard in hockey? Was it just too big of a contract for a young person?
I mean, I think it comes down to the inexperience. Like, a lot of the time, there's, like, a bridge deal of, like, 2 or 3 years before you get into that big long-term deal. There was some debate on Kaprizov when he was getting his deal. He only played 1 year, but he won Rookie of the Year and did well, and it's contract time. He wanted a big deal, and, you can't let a guy like that go, but you pay him all that money, and then people are like, well, what if he doesn't live up to the expectations? What if he's not, the player he's supposed to be? And I remember it was like a slight debate. Being here in Minnesota, when you have a superstar player, you just pay him. You don't get into this little dilly-daddling, well, is he worth it? Is the potential and all that? We had a star in the making. You sign him. It was the right move. But we've had crap deals throughout our franchise, and I don't know. I just feel like the young guys of the old that we had in our last run of Charlie Coyle, I can't remember, Nino Niederreiter, Jason Zucker, they were extremely streaky guys, and they'd disappear for 20 games and score 3 or 4 goals in a short span and then disappear again. And it just kept kept happening. I mean, we were just a punching bag for Chicago for that decade. Prezi and Suter came here based on the farm system. The farm system at the time, it was hype. It was like, oh yeah, we're going to be a perennial Stanley Cup contender, and we brought these two big guys in. I remember that year of 4th of July. It was a really fun year because, I wake up to two stars coming to Minnesota. How often does that happen? It felt like everything was changing, and you look at it now, and it's really hurting us with Kaprizov and these years that we could be contending. Hockey's it's really weird with the contracts and everything. I don't know. It's a little more difficult than football to me a little bit, because especially when you're drafting these guys, they don't play for years. I mean, they're still in high school or playing through the Gophers. I mean, our Gophers team is filled with pro players. They're just still in their collegiate years. And that doesn't happen in football. Your first round pick, he's there day one unless you drafted an absolute bust.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just it's a little harder. I don't know. Like, Boldy really only had 1 year, and it was with Fiala, and they had chemistry, and then he's gone. Boldy had a little more of a slow start this year, so I think people were kind of, a little iffy on it. But again, same with Kaprizov, Boldy is at that, probably not as good, but he's at that potential superstar level. So you pay the guy, and now we have him at probably a bargain deal for the next 7 years. So, with the salary cap going up, it should look pretty good. So I'm excited. But I suppose we should get on to the potential of a division title for the Wild. Baffling. We've been in the league since 2000. We only have one division title. I mean, wow. We're like the Detroit Lions of our division, almost.
Okay, you can't sink us that far. You can't sink us that far down.
I mean, if you compare it in the NFC North, though,
I don't think the Lions have won since, I want to say the 70s. I don't even know if they've ever won.
Right, but we only have one. And the Bears have had recently, it's not that great, but they've had a very illustrious history.
We're the Bears. They've had 2 division titles in the NFC North since 2000.
Okay, so 2.
Yeah.
So we're between the Bears and Lions. We're between.
I'd be willing to settle on that there.
I mean, because we've always had a contending team. That's why we're never a top 5 pick team. We're always we're never in the basement too of the picks. It's always the middle bunch, and sometimes we hit them, sometimes we whiff. It just keeps us in this purgatory of just this middle ground of not being able. We're not bad enough to contend for the future, and we're not. We just can't contend because we don't have the key pieces. We're not bad enough to rebuild, but we're not good enough to. It's just a continuous spiral. So
isn't that the story of almost all Minnesota sports? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I know the NBA has the draft lottery, so it doesn't really make a difference your record too much, but.
Well, anyways, the division. We are in a 3-way battle with the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. As of right now when we're recording, Dallas has played 72 games, we've played 72, and Colorado has played 70. Dallas has 92 points, we have 91, and Colorado has 88. So we're level in games with Dallas, but a single point behind, which is only an overtime loss. It really puts us in strength. Colorado's behind, though, 2 games and 4 points, or 3 points. So it's going to be a really tight finish, especially with Kaprizov out. But it would be really cool if we at least got a division title out of this year, to me. I don't know. I'd love a cup more than anything, but just to look in the banners at XL, all I see is 1 division title from 15 years ago. Number 1 retired for the Wild fans. Don't get me started about that jersey retirement. And then 9 Koivu. It's just an empty stadium. It feels like after 20 plus years, you should have a little more to show for it in the state of hockey.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with that. In the state of hockey, we should be a little bit better. But, I mean, in the grand scheme of sports, the Wild still are still a young team.
Oh yeah,
relatively, like to the rest of the league and stuff like that.
I mean, the Wolves are too, though, and we're continually the laughing stock of the NBA, it seems. So,
I mean, to be fair, does anyone really expect Minnesota? Let's go back to that state of hockey thing because we're cold and can't necessarily practice outdoor sports all the time. Can you really expect us to be all that superb at basketball?
I mean, I feel like we've had some competitive teams here in Minnesota. The Gophers right now, they're not. They did have a decent program with some good recruits coming in. And I believe it's Minnehaha Falls, the high school? Or
Minnetonka. I think Minnetonka usually fields a decent team.
We do have guys coming in. That guy who got drafted number 1 overall last year, Chet Holmgren, he's from Minnesota.
Is that the Park Center guy? No, Park Center guy was a few years. Doesn't matter.
We do have quality basketball players coming out of the pipes of Minnesota, and it's, it's cold. It's not where you probably want to play compared to LA or Miami. I get it, but we are a medium-sized market. It's not like you're going out to, Salt Lake City. It's not like you're in Oklahoma City.
Nah.
It's Minneapolis, the Twin Cities. It's a good population. The market is not small by any means. We get a lot of TV and stuff from the Dakotas who don't have a team. Sometimes in Montana, some people in Iowa. They go out from Wisconsin, Illinois, and us. So it's not just Minnesota. We do have like a big population to come into. I just feel like the national media doesn't focus on us as much. So you got guys like Anthony Edwards who get snubbed a lot from awards or going to the All-Star game or whatnot, but that's just the name of the game with playing here, I guess. But it is a medium-sized market, so it's not too bad. The Vikings don't have problems getting players here, but you don't see the market in effect as much in any other sport than basketball, it seems. Basketball, it's like, we need to go to the big markets, but, I mean, New York Knicks have not been a good team for years, so it's not the end-all, be-all to play in the big spotlight in basketball, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Bucks, since, they have a smaller city than us. They don't have as much reach as us. But I guess winning the finals does help.
Oh, everyone knows Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's a great player.
Yeah.
I love watching him. Personally, I hate the Packers. I'm not a big Wisconsin guy, but I have no issue with the Bucks. They're technically in the other conference, which doesn't make much sense to me. We should both be in the same division since we're so close, but we're not even rivals, so what's the point? I can root for them. It's cool to have a basketball team in the Midwest, putting up numbers. I like it. And then I guess Fanatics is taking over for jerseys in the NHL after next season. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm a big jersey collector. I have every single Wild jersey since we started. All the different brands, CCM, Reebok, and Adidas. Fanatics just makes the mid-tier option now. I felt it, the material's not as nice, and I'm concerned that they're not going to allow authentics at this point. Or are they going to force stitching of the patches onto the actual jerseys? I think they might. That's a potential thing where they omit stitching of everything else, but stitch the actual sponsorship patch, which to me would be ridiculous, but I could totally see a company like Fanatics doing that. I don't know. They seem to just buy out smaller companies and then keep the price the same, but make the material and everything just way cheaper. What do you think of that on a consumer level?
Well, if there's money to be made in selling the authentics, because I would guess that the profit margin on something like an authentic jersey is higher than something, even if it's cheap, something that's non-authentic, even if it's more cheaply made. Just due to the fact that, if you do make it right, just not... You spend very little to extra to make it look right, to get an extra, 100, $150, something like that, on an authentic label.
Well, a lot of sporting leagues have gotten rid of the cheap option now. They used to have like just the plain screen prints. And for whatever reason, they got rid of that. So now a lot of them have they still have the authentic, which is just all nicely stitched and everything. The NHL one technically isn't the on-ice product, but it's still stitched and nice. But a lot of them have scaled back, so the medium option, like in basketball, it's actually a heat-pressed fabric. Like, they heat-press the logo and stuff into it, and it's just much cheaply done. But the price didn't drop at all. It used to be single-layer stitch instead of double-layer like the Authentics were. So you just have a single-layer stitching. And then they just got rid of that and just heat-pressed the sucker on. When they kept the price the same, or jacked it up $10 more. I don't agree with that. In hockey, it's a $50 difference between the authentic. The authentic jerseys are like $180 without a name and number, and like $230 or $240 with a player name. And the Fanatics are like, I believe it's $100 I think it's $210 to have a player on there, and like $160 without.
For the heat pressed ones?
I don't even remember what the fabric is for the Fanatics. I think it's heat press. It's definitely not stitched. It's just like a weird material where like the crest of the jersey actually folds. Because if you ever sit down in like the stadium and you wear the authentic and you sit down, there'll be like a crease with the crest and it's a little uncomfortable to sit in. And Fanatics said, well, you can bend this one so it's more for fans. Maybe it's a cool gimmick, but I like to wear what the players are wearing. That's what I think is cool. I don't want to have the cheaper option. I'd like to have the real deal if that's a thing. I don't know. I guess it's fine to have the cheaper one if that's what you got, but like, once you've had the authentic, I've always read online, you're never going back.
I actually do remember the one Wild jersey I've owned was that kind of like bendable fabric on there, and it drove me nuts. It turned me off of like jerseys in general, to be honest. Like, because I mean, it's just scratchy. It's awkward.
Yeah,
I would much rather purchase a sweatshirt, or like especially a hockey sweatshirt, like with the nice laces on the on the neck.
Yeah, for the jerseys, I want the authentic experience, and if you're not going to give me that, why not wear a sweatshirt? I mean, I'd rather dumb down the price by half and just get a sweatshirt that's really nice instead of a way overpriced jersey that I'm just not happy with.
Yeah, and you could wear the sweatshirt everywhere. Like, you don't want to be wearing the jersey, like, grocery shopping or something like that.
Well, I mean, if you give me, like, a cheap one, I'd probably be, I'll wear that grocery shopping, but I don't bring my authentic nice ones out to go, let's go to B-Dubs and have some wings with this jersey on. Like, that's not really my thing.
Yeah.
You take the risk when you go to the stadiums and you're drinking, but outside of that, no risk for me. But I guess at that point we should get to the NFL.
Sweet, yeah. So I wanted to talk about the rule changes that made the final cut for the ones that the NFL is actually looking at, including the big one, in my opinion, which is the potential for a 4th and 20 instead of a kickoff, which to me I feel like would cause a lot of think like the Kansas City Chiefs that were already cutting their punter because their idea of, we're not going to punt anyway, might as well get some undrafted guy. That just kind of breeds that whole mentality, and maybe they start taking over the game, because 4th and 20 isn't very much, in my opinion, for something like that.
Do you know where, like, this would start? Like, say they don't convert it, where would the other team get the ball?
The 20. So
at the other 20? So you only have 20 yards to get a touchdown?
Yeah, 20 yards to get a touchdown.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a complete desperate move. You probably wouldn't see teams, like, the aggressiveness on the 2-point conversion when it's not needed. You probably wouldn't see teams going, let's go for this 4th and 20 when they're only up by 7 in, like, a second quarter or something.
Yeah, but think about, like, the teams with a dangerous dangerous kick returner, like
the Vikings.
Yeah, like the Vikings. Like, historically, we've had dangerous kick returners. Like, There were people that if they weren't confident in their special teams, they would kick it just straight out of bounds, and if they had to, and take the ball at the 40. Like for guys like Hester.
A la Devin Hester, Cordero Patterson, yeah.
Yeah. Like, just kick it out. Don't give them an opportunity. Like, if you can't get it into the back of the end zone, let's just take it at the 40.
Yeah, it almost seems like another form of, like, backyard football rather than, like, NFL rules. It sounds so weird to me. Even playing, like, Madden, it just still being so far back on the extra point. It's so weird to me because I remember that was just a gimme as a kid growing up. So, I don't know, at this point I do like the extra point coming back. I was very against it at first, but now it's kind of exciting. So, maybe I'd have the same feeling on 4th and 20.
I have liked the extra point coming back since the beginning of it, just because I knew it would make a few extra scorigamis. To be honest, I love tracking those.
As a Vikings fan, though, you should not like it at all. It's a very scary rule change.
Yes, as a homer, anytime a Vikings kicker lines up for a kick, there's a little bit of shaking of the legs, brown stuff in the pants, since apparently I can't say shit. There's one. Yeah, and then there's Detroit that's trying to go for possibility of a third challenge, and Detroit and LA are kind of in the same boat with this potential rule change. They are technically two separate rule changes, though. The Rams want to make the roughing the passer call reviewable fully, either by coaches challenge or through the booth reviewing it. And Detroit wants to make all personal fouls fall under that same rule. What do you think about that, Jordan?
As far as the roughing the passer goes, there's been a lot of really subjective calls. Like, even as a Vikings fan, I'm watching, a little shove at the end of Cousins and 15 yards. I'm not complaining, but in my head I know that's a little iffy. It doesn't really make any sense. And I see that throughout the league. It's getting a little questionable because I think these quarterbacks are just getting babied. And I understand you don't want a league full of second stringers or third stringers, but you gotta understand it from these defenders' perspective too. They're going full force, and you're asking them to, maneuver these, just another person's body and their own body at times in half a second. It's just not possible. So I think that's very fair to be able to review some of those plays. I think that's a good idea. I'm just wondering how that would... It might slow up the game considerably, because there's quite a lot of penalties that go like that.
Yeah, if they do enact that change, the first year is going to be hairy.
Oh, yeah.
There's gonna be some refs that are chased out of stadiums. That's just being honest. Because then it goes from it's an unreviewable call on the field that someone made in a split second, which is understandable. We can all make mistakes in a split second. They always had the barrier of we cannot go back on that, really. Once it's been called, that's it.
Yeah.
But if it comes down to they're looking at that in the same way that they do first downs, and everybody can see up close because the cameras zoom in on, the distance between the ball and the first down marker, you leave a lot more room for it to become almost personal for the refs at that point. I don't know if you agree with that necessarily. I'm not ready to see... Sorry. How do I word this? I'm not ready to deal with the nuance entering the game more so than it already has.
I'd say that's a fair assessment. It's just, I don't know, the games could slow down considerably. Every game there is multiple controversial calls. The refs have just been atrocious. There were so many games last year where I was just in full rage mode. Like, these refs were just killing me. I don't understand why we would want to make their jobs more difficult, I guess, because it's clear that the rules already in place are too much to handle. So, while I do like it, I totally agree with you that it adds a whole can of worms. I just don't want to see the game slowed down so much, but I would like maybe if it can be like automatically reviewed from like upstairs from like New York or something, where they can call in and say, no, that's not a play, and it gets overturned. Maybe that would be like some kind of compromise, because the obvious plays should be dealt with, and like when New York gets involved, it is a quick process. So I feel like, because they do have people watching all these games, it's not like it's Minnesota playing, we don't need to watch. They're definitely watching every single game. So I think reviewing automatically from upstairs, if like it's an obvious play or something, might be a good way to do it. But I don't want to see the refs getting any more involved with challenges on roughing the passer and having to look at it. It's just, they're looking back again and again. 5-10 minutes goes by. You're sitting there drinking, stressing out on the play. I don't want to go through it.
What is it that New York automatically reviews every time? Isn't it like touchdowns and turnovers or something like that?
Yeah, it's every touchdown, or every scoring play,
Every scoring play.
Not even touchdown.
I see.
And then I think you're right on every turnover, because they definitely go back and check. I've seen some questionable calls over the years, though, where there's still like that big Eagles play, not their number 2, their younger receiver that they have right now, not AJ Brown, Deontay Johnson, is that his name?
Deontay Johnson, yeah.
Yes. When he had, I think it was the NFC Championship, when he had that catch out of bounds, like within the 5 or 10. Obviously, it didn't matter because the 49ers got crushed, but he was out of bounds, or he dropped it or whatever. Like, it wasn't a completed catch, and they just let it go on. At those big, important games, like, I don't know. I think you need to double-check it. Like,
yeah. I mean, it shouldn't even matter the importance of the game, realistically. Like,
no.
This is a multi-billion-dollar company. You can pay a couple more people if you have to be watching the like special cameras that they have or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's great when it works in your favor of your team, but when you're watching as the opposition and see that's not a play, and then you just got to take it, it hurts.
Or even as a casual fan.
Oh, well, yeah, I was just going to say that. As a casual fan, when I watch other games, it baffles me too, and I'm just as angry because I feel for them. So it's only fun when you're the team getting the beneficial call.
Yeah.
And I'd rather just eliminate that and just have every team on an even fair playground than...
Oh my God. Could you imagine being new to football and having a coach challenge a roughing the passer call and having them break down where it became roughing the passer specifically?
They don't even know what a catch is at this point. So.
Right. Like, you're going to flip the channel right then. Like,
well, there are definitely some interesting rule changes that could definitely change how quickly the game runs through, and interesting endgame dynamics for sure. I guess we could go into other free agents. Start off, Ezekiel Elliott getting cut by the Dallas Cowboys. He's named as finalists down to the Bengals, Eagles, and Jets. What do you think of these 3 teams and Ezekiel Elliott's fit?
I have no idea why he would want to go to the Jets. He is Mr. Feed Me, right? Like, he wants the ball in his eye. Like, he has that old school workhorse mindset. But then the Jets have Breece Hall, who is a great up-and-comer. I'm sure they have a good backup to kind of like...
Is Michael Carter still there? I can't remember. I believe that's his name, Carter. They had 2 or 3 backs last year. Like, when Breece Hall got hurt, obviously he's an explosive player and great, but they had a big running room.
Yeah.
And they have if Aaron Rodgers is coming there, and then I'm sure he's going to want other receivers that haven't been picked up, but they already had a decent receiving room before they made that trade the other day. I think was it Elijah Moore that got moved?
Yeah, they got rid of Elijah Moore, but that was after they signed Allen Lazard too, so it was...
Right. Like, the receiving core there is good. I think Ezekiel Elliott will thrive in a system where he's like, sharing the load amongst 2 or 3 running backs, but the Jets are an extremely crowded team, and I'm also not sure that the contract's going to line up, really. The last time the Jets gave a big contract to a running back was Le'Veon Bell, and I think they were having buyer's remorse on that pretty quick.
Yeah, that is definitely true, but, I mean, if they could find the cap space for it, they have a very young team. I would venture, like, a solid majority of their players or a solid, like, chunk of their players are still on rookie contracts or cheap contracts, to say the least. Like, yeah. They are one of the, I think last time I looked at it, they're like top 6 for cap space room right now, something along those lines.
I'm trying to think of their veteran players. Is it Quentin Williams, I believe, is their D lineman, who's like super, super, super good. One of the premier players in the league. I believe that's his name.
That sounds right to me.
And, they have Sauce Gardner coming up. And an explosive offense last year. When we beat them as the Vikings, I was very excited. I don't think people really cared much, or it's just the Jets, but the Jets are a quality team. They didn't really have their quarterback situation figured out, but with Aaron Rodgers coming there, the Jets would be a scary team for me to play.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure we ended a 7-game win streak for them.
Yeah, their number 2 corner's great.
Yeah. Yeah, like, that defense overall is top tier, and I think that's why Rodgers wanted to go to them. Like, other than the fact that it's the farthest possible city he can get away from his family outside of New England. And
the fact that he wants to be Brett Favre and come here next year.
Yeah.
And it's not a topic we were going to discuss, but maybe we should just get into that right now, because Favre did go to the Jets and then came here. He's going to the Jets. Cousins, we didn't re-up him. At this point, he's gone next year. I mean, I don't know. I might be thinking crazy here, but it seems a little too coincidental.
Oh, no. If you look on any of the NFC North related subreddits, actually any NFL related subreddit in general, everyone's just predicting when Rodgers' dick pic drops to a reporter. The prophecy has started. It's just if it will continue. If it does come out that dick pic is sent to a sideline reporter, I'm all for him on the Vikings just to complete that cycle.
And then I guess political drama in the future for him too, a la Favre. Oh, so interesting.
Allegedly.
Well, I guess speaking of Ezekiel Elliott leaving Dallas, he can maybe go into Dallas again, how Brendan Cooks was traded to them. What do you think of Brendan Cooks? I mean, I'll just lay out his stats here. He is a multi-1K receiver, doing it in 2015 and 2016 with the Saints, 2017 with the Patriots, 2018 with the Rams, and 2020 and 2021 with the Texans. That is a lot of years of 1K receptions. Only 29 going on 30. What an impressive resume, but he doesn't have a Pro Bowl. Not a single Pro Bowl nod. Everyone says Pro Bowls are gimmies. How do you have that many 1K seasons and not make the Pro Bowl? I think at that point, you have to understand it's at least a pretty cool stat. You either were great or are becoming great to have that nod.
To have the Pro Bowl nod?
Mostly.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say most players have had the at least potential. I mean, Bridgewater made it one year, and he was not the best quarterback, but...
Trubisky made it one year.
I mean, Trubisky's kind of a joke, but... I don't know, I think the quarterbacks might be an exception, because they seem to be coming through, but I seem generally, like, mostly good quality players are going to the Pro Bowl. I mean, sure, there's a lot of snubs, but, like, Jefferson going to the Pro Bowl is definitely worthy. CeeDee Lamb had a good season, it was worth it. I feel like generally they get it right.
Yeah, I have always been a big fan of Brandon Cooks, even though I hate the Saints.
Oh, me too.
Even when he was on the Saints, I loved him. I loved watching him, but I also can't remember. I don't think I've watched a highlight reel of him in a Texans uniform. I don't think it's ever came across anything. I've seen highlight reels of him in the Saints. That just happened.
Well, with the Saints, he was with Drew Brees. And he was getting national spotlight left and right. He's your guy. The Patriots, Tom Brady. I mean, that's, definitely you're going to be a spotlight player. Then going to the Rams, too, in the big new town with, the Rams leaving St. Louis. You're going to be media spotlight. Then he goes to Houston. I know it's one of the fourth biggest market in the United States, or biggest population. It's a huge city. So you'd think there'd be media, but they suck. So, what's the point of seeing anything from them? I mean, David Mills is thrown to him. I just don't think that there's anything worthy of showing. He's quietly produced a couple 1K seasons, but how many wins have they had? I just think he was kind of...
Probably as many wins as he's had 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah. I mean, I think he just kind of got fallen by the wayside. He's just a forgotten player, and he's going to have media attention in Dallas. Not a far move either.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think it's great for him, but I don't think it's going to work. They're bringing back essentially the same roster, and this offense has been what's kicking for years. They lost Duncan Schultz, who was really good last year for Dak Prescott. They lost Ezekiel Elliott, who was a good number 2. Obviously, Pollard's the guy you want to lock up. So you're rocking with CeeDee Lamb, Cooks, and Pollard. Okay, we'll see what the draft has to unfold. But Prescott's still the one under center. I don't think Cooks is the missing puzzle. I think until you get rid of Prescott and figure out that QB room, it doesn't matter what you do. Dallas is going to be a hyped-up team, make the playoffs, and swiftly go home.
Dallas is going to be a hyped-up team no matter who's under center. That is just... It's America's team, right?
How, though? They're not my team.
Because they have the most primetime slots.
Yeah, I guess they're primetime in America's slots, but not because we asked for it.
Yeah, but we still watch it just to eat up that garbage.
True.
I don't know. I don't think Dak Prescott is that bad, though. His stats are very close to Kirk Cousins. The only thing that he does worse than Kirk Cousins is he doesn't seem to have that same, experience to him. There are some more boneheaded throws and stuff like that he makes. You look at the interception ratio and stuff like that just to see that. But overall, that thing you said about the media overhyping Dallas and then they enter the playoffs to a swift exit, you could say the same thing about Kirk Cousins and the Vikings minus the media overhyping them, really.
But Dallas had a much better defense. If the Vikings had Dallas's defense last year, I don't think we're leaving home against the Giants. We had just an abysmal defense.
Yeah. Honestly, not even just the whole defense. Just give us Diggs and Micah Parsons. That would have taken us at least up 6 levels, or 6 rankings.
I guess Diggs will let the touchdowns fly through, but he's going to give you a big explosive play. And the Vikings defense, that game, that's all we needed. All game. One play.
Yeah.
We never got it.
Yeah.
All game, we just let him just storm through. Daniel Jones. I mean, he looked better than Tom Brady, Joe Montana. I mean, who are these guys in comparison to Daniel Jones?
He looked like an unironic version of Vanilla Vic out there.
I am serious. Daniel Jones got his contract because of the Vikings. He did not have good games, except for his 2 games against the Vikings. It shot his numbers through the roof. So the entire NFL would like a thank you from the Minnesota Vikings, for sure. But back to what you were saying about Prescott. He missed multiple games last year and still led the league in interceptions. I gotta question his decision-making. I mean, I believe it was 14 interceptions, if I'm looking at the back of my mind, and he missed 5 games at least. That's terrible.
I don't know. 14 interceptions really led the league last year?
Wow. I mean, that's... If he were to play every game, that's almost a pick a game. And that's not good. I mean, in Madden, it might be normal, but in, like, the regular NFL, sure, you take your big shots, but Mahomes doesn't have a pick a game,
Okay, but that's, like, a potential GOAT. Like, that's a potential GOAT conversation.
But even Cousins, he wasn't having nearly as many picks. This year, he had the most picks that I've seen since the Vikings, but he was shooting it down the field and taking shots. Prescott maybe was doing that, but they were operating fine with their backup.
I'm pretty sure Daniel Jones had the same amount of interceptions, with less touchdowns to boot.
Well, Jones, I mean, he was really making things with his legs. That's almost what I think of him as instead of a passing quarterback. He's definitely not really a pocket passer in my mind.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's also, 14 picks just seems like a low amount to really go off of. You think back to, I know it's a different league now, and this is, eternity ago. Favre, I feel like he's had some, 20 pick seasons or something like that. You think Jameis Winston, 30 for 30 and stuff like that.
I mean...
just seems like it was just a low mistake overall from QBs, this season.
Well, I think QB plays definitely changed. You would think the interceptions go up a lot, but corners are just wide receivers you can't catch. That's really all they are.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm sorry, it was 15 interceptions last year that led the league. 15 interceptions, and he only played 12 games. So that's more than a pick a game.
I guess that's fair when you do phrase it like that.
And then I guess we could talk about the other Vikings-related stuff. Thielen, officially a Panther, like we were saying last time. He was saying that he thinks they can win a Super Bowl. Yeah. So let's discuss the Panthers' chances of winning the Super Bowl next year. What do you think?
If I'm going to have this as a non-sarcastic as possible, they are in a dog water division who the last year's team that won it didn't even have a winning record. 8-9 with the Bucks. They don't have to win much to get into the playoffs, and once they do, anything can happen. That's the only benefit I could really see.
Well, they do have draft capital, so it'll be interesting to see what they do in the draft. Obviously, they're going to come get a quarterback, but how they operate with the rest of the roster in the draft, they're going to have to hit on some of those picks, I think, to be effective down the stretch. I think you're saying exactly the right thing about the division. The Saints they're not that scary team to me. I think they got worse this offseason, losing players.
Yeah.
And the Bucks definitely regressed, losing Tom Brady, and Fournette is a really, really good running back, I thought.
Oh, yeah.
I liked how he played, so I think that's a big loss to them.
He was super consistent. Definitely a major loss. And the Saints, who are going to be more than likely losing Alvin Kamara for at least a season due to his off-the-field issues and stuff like that are coming up. They picked up Jamal Williams, but still, you can't really replace someone who was arguably top 5 at their position with someone who is more of a touchdown scorer rather than long game earner.
Yeah, I am blanking on the other person in the division. It's the Buccaneers. Falcons. There you go. I see why I forgot. I guess enough said. They do have a chance at winning the division. I think a very good chance. But I think once you get into the playoffs, based on what I saw last year, Detroit could be a scary team to play. The Vikings could be a scary team if we improve the defense. Dallas, as is, over the Panthers, probably. I'd say that's a fair assessment. The Eagles, the 49ers. I just think there's a slew of teams that would be, even the Seahawks, they were an upcoming team. there is a lot of talent in the NFC, and I think the Panthers, they could definitely be that 4th seed, but they would be the team that I would gush to play over in the first round. And, they might be an overlooked team. You might come in thinking, oh yeah, we can steamroll them and not be prepared, but they would be the team I'd want to play. A rookie quarterback leading a team in the playoffs. I don't know. That seems like a recipe for disaster.
Well, apparently him and Andy Dalton are really cool. Like, they have spent a lot of time in the offseason together and stuff like that. They're some part of some Christian something or another union. So Adam Thielen and Andy Dalton, who the Panthers just signed, they're apparently really cool, like, outside of the game. So that could have impacted his decision a little bit, but I don't think he was chasing a ring at any point. I think that he went to whomever signed him, whoever gave him the biggest bag, which, I mean, I respect at the end of the day. Like,
I don't blame him. I mean, you can't walk in there and say, I came here for the bag. There's no way we win a Super Bowl. No way.
Right.
He's just not saying it.
But I do find it very interesting that they signed him to a 3-year deal with 0 of the money guaranteed in the 3rd year. It is, for all intents and purposes, a 2-year deal, and $6.5 million of the, I think it was $19 million, is on the 3rd year. At which point, it's pretty much going to be on him to either retire or get cut. Those are his only 2 options.
They'd probably be able to afford it, though. I mean, in 3 years, their quarterback would still not be on a big deal. They wouldn't really, I don't know anyone on their team necessarily that is going to be eating up so much of their cap where they couldn't afford a $6.5 million cap hit.
I guess, but he's going to be 34 going on 35 right now.
Oh, I'd say probably he won't be worth it, but I don't think money would be the deciding factor. I think it might, and I could see him wanting to possibly move on to a contender at that point, being, this really is my last legs. Maybe this is my last year, if this is even a year. I'm going to go to the Chiefs. I'm going to go to the Eagles. I'm going to go somewhere and win. I could see that more than the Panthers saying, we can't afford you. You're too expensive. We have too many legends on this team.
I still would have loved to see him catching from Mahomes, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I still want to see that. That's why I hope that maybe after the 2 years he still has some legs in him and can, be good for 20, 30 catches to be the 3rd or 4th guy on a team. That'd be cool.
Help Mahomes win his 4th Super Bowl.
Yeah.
At that time.
And then we have C.J. Ham officially signing a 2-year extension with the Vikings. There's not too much to get into, but I just think that that's a solid move. I think, not a lot of teams use fullbacks, but Ham's caught it. He's rushed it. He helps us. He's a great person. I just think it's great. I think overall we've been a successful team with fullbacks. Jerome Fulton, I don't know, remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had success with fullbacks, so I think I like seeing him on the team. He has made the Pro Bowl. Usually it's I can't remember his name, Jetski from the 49ers.
Juice check.
Yes, he always makes it, so our guy doesn't get in, but he's always like the alternate, just waiting for them to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then the Vikings lost Duke Shelley to the Raiders. That kind of hurts me. What do you think of that?
Dude, our cornerback room is so depleted. I don't think we had room to lose someone like Duke Shelley. I mean, in Flores, I trust. Like, not like I have a choice really in that, but we got rid of what was that guy that I had brought up to you that we might have gotten rid of due to locker room issues? Dantzler, yeah. We waived him, which I thought was already sketchy because, we already don't have so many starting caliber cornerbacks. But if the locker room issues are true and stuff like that, that's fine. But now we get rid of Duke Shelley, who is another up-and-coming young guy, and it makes me concerned. Are we just going to be putting the, hitting dummies that they have in the training facility? Are we just going to be putting them out there at a certain point?
Well, if you need someone, I'll play for the minimum. I'll I'll play just like the defense of last year. So it's just to be expected. But yeah, Duke Shelley was a quality player. 81 Pro Football Focus rating, 55.2 passer rating against him last season. And to think of those stats on our defense, why would you want to lose that? I mean, we would have somehow been 33rd or 34th in the league, you know? College teams would have moved up on us. Like, it's just insane. He was saying that $1.2 million was the contract offered to him. That's pretty low, but I didn't see any terms with what he got with the Raiders, but I can't imagine they handed him much more than that. I mean, maybe it was the same or similar, and it was just a matter of, like, respect, but I don't know. I think a 1-year deal, prove it with, like, $2 million or something we probably could have afforded. Or even just him taking what he had and then, you know, plays really well. I'm sure we could have locked him up into another deal going forward if he performed well, but it could be something with not fitting well with Flores' system or something like that, because we didn't aggressively pursue him, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, that could very well be it, and that's what I'm assuming it is, but at a certain point, we're going to be looking at having to draft, like, 4 cornerbacks.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of the draft, what do you think the Vikings should look for into the first round at this point? Not maybe specifically players, but positional group.
I'm not gonna lie, I've been drinking some of the Kool-Aid on getting a quarterback if one is available at 23. I feel like that might be the good move if we truly are going to be moving on from Kirk Cousins. Like, if we know we have our guy in someone like Will Levis or one of the top 4 guys really falls down to us. So Will Levis or Anthony Richardson are the 2 that are mainly looking to possibly fall down past someone like the Colts and past someone like the Bucks, stuff like that. The odds are that they're not going to, but we also don't have a 2nd round pick to potentially get someone like Hendon Hooker that would have fallen down all the way. That is pretty much going to be a 2nd round pick minus some crazy Jordan Love esque move. We don't have that 2nd round pick to get him. And I think Kevin O'Connell wants someone to mold. And if they could start that now and know whether or not they have the guy by the end of Kirk Cousins' contract while still having Kirk Cousins on the roster just in case, that might be the play to go. How about you?
I mean, there's 5 positions that I see a big need for, and you can go with defense or offense. I guess I'll start with offense. It definitely was our strong point last year, but we lost Thielen, and it wasn't the most, he was like the 4th option most of the year, but I still think we need another guy to step in there and add some explosiveness. So if a wide receiver falls to us, I'd be okay with it, but I would not reach, or if there's a debate amongst one of the other positions I'm going to mention, I would not look at wide receiver, because I think you could probably find someone later, or even potentially in free agency, there could still be a guy who might, just fill in a role. I think Osborne, Hawkinson, and Jefferson can lead an offense. We still have Cook and Madison as of right now. I mean, it seems like a pretty deep offense overall to me, because I still like that Naylor guy from last year too. I think he has potential. We seem to be good at getting late round picks, so I think hopefully we can just find some bloomer in the late round, but offensive guard is another one. Our right guard position was terrible last year, and it was really the only offensive line position that needed to be solidified, and that might be nice if there's some elite guard available that we can draft and plug and play. I think it would be nice to solidify the O-line, but again, we've spent so many picks on it early rounds over the years that maybe we should look elsewhere, because defense is definitely key, and you can look at the interior D-line. I mean, I'm just looking at everyone we have on the interior, and it doesn't scream championship caliber to me. You win and lose in the trenches, and we have absolutely no one that makes me think he's gonna dominate that O-line. Like, we have some okay guys, but Phillips, he's quality. But you look at linebacker, too, getting rid of Kendricks, it's a pretty bare room. And I think that's, I guess with the 3-4, we've put Hunter and Za'Darius are there, but they operate more as pass rushers and not as, coverage linebackers. So we don't really have anyone to cover their tight end or running back on the opposition. And then, like you said, corner. We are so bare at corner. We absolutely need help at corner. And I think this is a great problem to have in one sense, that if the guy falls to you in any one of those positions, you can take him. You can really go best overall and not be upset with who you get based on a positional standpoint. I'd probably want to lean towards linebacker or D-line if there's an equal footing there at a grade level in the first round, but just because corner we haven't had much success. I mean, Xavier Rhodes, great, we hit on it, but he took a few years and then fizzled out pretty hard. Trey Waynes was always meh. Mike Hughes didn't pan out, and then a couple years ago we took Dantzler in the third round, and it was okay, and then we got a guy in the first round. He was cut, and then now he's passed away, sadly, but it just hasn't worked out early round in corner, so it kind of scares me. But, if you find that guy and you see him, it is such a valuable position.
Yeah. I do worry about, taking someone like defensive interior in the first overall. That is a position that you can tend to fill out in the later parts of the draft pretty easily. And the learning curve historically hasn't been as hard on them let's say we don't take a defensive interior lineman and our run stopping game just sucks next year. We could also dedicate a couple, late round picks to that next year and generally be able to plug them in should we need to. I guess I should say mid round, third to fifth round, more so than maybe fifth to sixth or seventh.
I mean, our draft day won't be as bad next season as it is this year as far as the cupboard being bare.
Yeah, it's just hard to look forward to the draft when you only got, 4 picks?
5 with the compensation pick.
Oh, yeah.
So, we're doing okay now.
We almost have the normal amount of picks.
If we had Spielman, we'd walk out with 10 or 15 picks, but they'd all be in the 7th round, so...
Right, yeah. No, I would not be opposed to, if they felt that this draft was loaded on defense, I would not be opposed to Kwesi trading out of the first round altogether just to get some draft capital, maybe in the third or second round even. Because, if we're trading out of the first, we're going to get a second round pick out of that for sure. But even if that meant an extra third and maybe late round 7th or something like that, I think we should take that deal. Personally, how about you?
Well, the only thing I'd say is if we trade out of the first round, because you see a couple guys, you better damn well hit those picks. You cannot miss a pick here. Because that first rounder, again, if you select a guy, you better not miss. Last year with trading back and ending up with Sign, I think a lot of us were a little upset because Kyle Hamilton was on the board and we still went safety. And then the guy gets hurt all year, so we don't even see him. Yeah. It's really upsetting. And, he might bounce back and have a great year and we'll be like, oh yeah, what a smart pick. But I think the pressure's on. You need to hit this pick.
Oh yeah. And Hamilton was basically the only person in Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation with Sauce Gardner. We could have just taken him and not worried about the trade. Easy peasy.
Oh yeah, I was so happy. I remember watching the TV. He fell right to us. Great, we're getting our safety. He's going to learn from Harrison Smith. We're good. Trade out. Oh. Okay, well, what are we doing? A safety? What? Another one? What?
We could have just... You could have just had what you knew you were going to go for anyway.
Yeah.
Just take what you know you can get. When you can get it.
Right. It wasn't like a situation like when Spielman had Matt Khalil on the board. He knew he wanted him and got the Browns to move one spot up to nab Trent Richardson, and we still got Khalil along with a later pick. That's a brilliant move, and that's not what that sign deal was. That was a big trade out, and that can scare me. So I don't know. It's definitely a situation though where you move in, you stay, you need to hit it. So you just need to think about that if you're moving out of it, the guys that you are leaving back, you better hope that guy's still on the board. And if he's still on the board, that he's a star caliber player. Because we need star caliber players on defense.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Actually, speaking on the Ravens real quick, did you see who they are? Did you see they finally got some weapons for Lamar Jackson?
I did see that. Nelson Aguilar, I believe, right?
Yes. They love their aging wide receivers.
Well, I mean,
man,
you could have gotten like made a move like Justin Jefferson traded for him, or nab Brendan Cooks, but they went the smart route and got the top guy on the market, Aguilar, yeah. And now it's a wrap. He's got his number 1 Super Bowl. I mean, quite frankly.
Yep. Lamar Jackson's got to be thrilled over there.
Yeah, I think he's probably looking at all these free agent rumors, trade rumors and stuff, that some of these other teams might be okay.
Anyway, we can get off the draft, and you had an announcement about the Saints.
Yeah, not the New Orleans Saints. We're going to be talking AAA baseball with the St. Paul Saints, historic minor league baseball team. This will be their 31st season coming up, and their 3rd season as the minor league affiliate to the Twins. Some sad news, though. The ownership group sold the team. The ownership group did consist of a few people, one of them including Bill Murray from Ghostbusters fame and Zombieland fame. So that's kind of cool. He would come to the game sometimes, and I was actually watching Space Jam the other day with Michael Jordan, and there's Bill Murray's in it. There's a cap with the St. Paul Saints.
Oh, yeah?
It's crazy because it's a minor league team who, wasn't a Twins affiliate at the time, in their own independent league, and like in a big movie like that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it's a little scary with the new national owners coming in to take over, because it screams changes. But they've said that they're not going to make any changes, and I really like the baseball field. I know you've been too. What do you think of the fan experience at the St. Paul Saints Stadium?
I just like the vibe of the St. Paul Saints Stadium. Like, it really is just down to earth, and like you don't have to worry about like which concourse you're at or anything like that, or what side of the field you're really on. It's not even like you can go to the opposite end of the diamond or anything like that. Like, it's all just right there. You can pretty much see the action from anywhere you are in the stadium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's a really cool stadium. I only went there once, but in the heart of St. Paul, and just a beautiful course all around, or field how it is. It's just, the grass is really nice. The concourses are nice. Good food selection, good beer, and it's a fun product that they put out.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I really like, that it's just a fun product.
For a good price, too.
Oh, yeah. And it's also really unique that the Twins are right in Minneapolis. It's just a short drive from Minneapolis to St. Paul, so call-ups are super easy. I mean, the Wild's old affiliate used to be the Houston Aeros, which is halfway across the country, compared to Iowa, which is very small and good, but Minneapolis and St. Paul, 10, 15-minute drive, that's, for call-ups on the spot, that's a huge, cool boost. So it's a very unique situation as far as helping our major league team, but also still being its own fun product and keeping it on a small base for the fans. So, I'm just hoping that the new owners can just keep it going how it is.
Yeah, I think that'd be best for all of us. They got 9 other teams to worry about, so hopefully they just don't worry too much about a successful AAA franchise.
Well, the only thing I want changed is them to sell authentic jerseys online. It's been a pain.
Not with Fanatics.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up our show here today, folks.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And that's it for Ope Sports with Jordan and Andrew.
You guys have a nice day now. Please